Hello, and now this is a video on the Greek of Acts 13, verses 23 through 32. Yes, 23 to 32 today. The podcast has more commentary. This is an analysis of the Greek. So we're in the middle of Paul's first sermon in Acts, almost certainly not his first sermon. He's been a Christian for 13, 14 years by this point. I'm sure he's preached over and over and over again. But if you remember a little bit earlier in Acts 13, they see they have guests in the synagogue there at Pisidian Antioch in the middle of Asia Minor, in the middle of Turkey today, and in Galatia, to which Paul will later write the book of Galatians. And they ask if anybody has a word of exhortation among them. And Paul, of course, is never one to not talk when asked. And so Paul gets up. And he's been talking about how the Jesus movement, or he's been implying that the Jesus movement is in perfect continuity with the Old Testament. This is not a new religion. This is the culmination of everything that Israel has been waiting for. And he's just said in verse 22 that David became a king after God's own heart. And there's where we join our verses today, verse 23. The God from the seed of this one, that is from the seed of David, according to promise, led to Israel a Savior, namely Jesus. Okay, so this reminds us of Romans 1, 3, and 4, which talks about how Jesus was of the seed of David according to the flesh. His earthly kingly, he has a kingly genealogy from a human perspective. Agag, this is Arist, right? Agag, Arist. Of Ago. So I know it's because I've memorized it. There's the augment on the front. It would be normally an alpha, but it's been augmented because it's Aorist. Epsilon nu. Now, hopefully you fried on your brain sigma epsilon nu. What's sigma epsilon nu? Sen at the end? It's Aorist active indicative third singular from whatever word. Well, epsilon nu is similar. It is third person singular, active indicative, from some past tense. So N could be either aorist or imperfect, and you have to get other information to figure out which one it is. Since Agag is the aorist stem of Ago, I know this is aorist. It's the stem that tells you the tense. The nu is, again, a movable nu. Throw it out. It's a nu with an epsilon in front of it is almost always a movable nu, or is often a movable nu. Okay, verse 24. John, having proclaimed ahead of time, before the face of the entrance of him, that is of Jesus. Okay, this is a genitive absolute. Genitive absolute is a noun or pronoun in the genitive with a participle in the genitive. So John is in the genitive here, and then this is a genitive participle. Xi is the key to hidden sigma, so it's a hidden sigma alpha. It's an aorist participle. My aunt is an active participle, so it's aorist, active participle, and then os is genitive singular, either masculine or neuter. Because John is masculine, we're going to go with masculine. Arkonantos, it's the genitive singular. So this is aorist, active participle, genitive masculine singular from prokeruso, to preach ahead of time. Okay, so John having, because it's aorist, John having preached ahead of time before the face of the entrance of him, of Jesus. What did he preach? He preached a baptism of repentance to all the people of Israel. We're going to conceptualize this Israel as a genitive. It's a loan word, and therefore it's not required to have Greek endings, but we know in our heads that it's genitive. Okay, how are you doing? Verse 25, and as John was fulfilling the course, the race, so this is dromos, is a course, a run, something you run. Epleru is the imperfect of pleroo, to complete or perfect. This is the nominative of John. It doesn't look like the nominative of John, but hey, we have to deal with it. So because it's present tense with an augment, so it's the imperfect tense. As John was fulfilling the race, he was saying, so this is the imperfect of lego, it's the present stem of lego with an augment. Quote, what are you perceiving me to be? Not good English, but it's fine Greek. What are you thinking? Who are you thinking I am? What are you thinking about me? So this is an interrogative pronoun, ti. It's the neuter form of it. Huponoete is the present stem of huponoeo. No tricks done to the stem there, so it's present. What are you thinking me to be? The subject, quote unquote, of an infinitive is accusative. So eme is accusative. Enai is a present infinitive of me, to be or not to be. Enai or not enai. Okay. Uk emi ego. Not I am I. I'm not the guy. I'm not the one I'm preaching about. But behold is coming after me. And here's a fun little phrase, of whom not I am worthy the sandal of the feet to loose. I'm not worthy to untie this guy's shoes, he's saying. So it's a relative pronoun, of whom I am not worthy. Not worthy, I'm not worthy. Okay, loosei is the aorist, sigma alpha, it's aorist. I is infinitive, so this is an aorist active infinitive from luo, to loose. Verse 26. Men, brothers, friends, Romans, countrymen. Men, brothers, vocatives. Sons of the race of Abraham. And the ones among you fearing God. So this is referring to God-fearers, the Gentiles who have not fully converted to Judaism, but they believe in the God of Israel. Genos genus. This is at first it's annoying. It's a genitive singular neuter from genos genus. It's a weird form. Once you get to know it, you kind of feel proud every time you can identify it. Sons of the race of Abraham, and the ones among you fearing God, present participle. Phobet omai is deponent. Omai, it's deponent. The word of the salvation, the word of this salvation was sent out. So this, you might say, well, if there was a theta there, this would be theta eta aorist passive. Well, there should be, but there isn't. This is a second aorist passive, meaning it doesn't have the theta. So it's aorist passive indicative, third singular, from ex apostello. So instead, it becomes was sent out because it's aorist passive, was sent. Verse 27, for the ones dwelling in Jerusalem and the rulers of them, subjects here, this is a present participle. My aunt is an active participle. And then this, the rulers, the ones ruling. You could either think of it as a participle of rule, but it also, there's a noun made out of the participle, archon, a ruler, one who rules. See that it says the same thing. If you think of it as a participle, it's the ones who are ruling. If you think of it as a noun, it's the rulers. Same thing, really. So same form, two ways to skin it. So the rulers of them, having been ignorant with regard to this, so I'm taking this as a accusative of reference, having been ignorant with reference to this in the first run through. Sometimes with Greek grammar, you can kind of have a first run through and then a second run through, and I'll talk about that in a second. In classical Greek, we called this an internal accusative. I'm not sure why. Okay. Their rulers, having been ignorant with regard to this. So sigma alpha, this is an aorist participle. My aunt is an active participle. So it's an aorist active participle. S is a nominative masculine plural, which goes with the rulers. So having been ignorant with regard to this. And you might remember that there are adjectival participles, like the ones ruling or the ones dwelling. And you with adjectival ones, there's often an article, and you insert a who or a that into the translation. The ones who are dwelling, or the ones who are ruling, and so forth. This agnoesantes has no article on it, so it's probably an adverbial participle. That means it's telling us about the verb, which is down here, epleroson, they were fulfilled. They fulfilled them. This is sigma alpha, so it's aorist, they fulfilled them. Aorist active indicative third plural, epleroson. So having been ignorant, they fulfilled even the voices of the prophets, the according to every Sabbath being read voices. Isn't Greek fun? Okay. So back to agnoesantes. It's adverbial because it doesn't have an article, and it just is. So there are 10 different possible nuances an adverbial participle can have. This one, I feel I feel it, Luke. Luke, it's a causal participle. And so it translates really nicely as because they were ignorant of this. So we call that a causal adverbial participle. I'm not making it up. You can trust the force, Luke. You can feel it, right? You can feel the because there. So the ones dwelling in Jerusalem and their rulers, because they were ignorant of this, even they fulfilled this. Now this, on the second run around, it is a more genuine direct object. They fulfilled this. They fulfilled, well, actually forget that. They fulfilled the voices of the prophets, the voices having been read according to every Sabbath. So this is called an attributive construction: article noun, article participle, or article adjective. So it's the having been read voices of the prophets. The having been read voices of the prophets according to every Sabbath. Isn't Greek fun? Okay, so this here is a present, it's a present participle. Men are passive participles, so it's a present passive participle from Anna Gnosko. You know Anna, right? Anna Gnosko, she lives down the street. Okay, verse 20, okay, I've left out krinantes, which is aorist because of this alpha. That's the only thing left to tell me it's an aorist. It doesn't do sigmas because it has a nu, which is a liquid verb, and liquid verbs don't do sigma. It's in their contract. So having condemned him, they fulfilled. So the whole sentence goes something like this. For the ones dwelling in Jerusalem and their rulers, because they did not understand this, even they fulfilled this. They fulfilled the voices of the prophets, the ones having been read, the ones being read according to every Sabbath, having condemned him. Verse 28. And having found no cause of death. This is the aorist of heurisco because there's no sco, no cause. What happened? They asked Pilate, aorist, sigma alpha, so it's the aorist of Ito. They asked Pilate to put him to death. Theta, eta, aorist passive, right? They asked Pilate him to be put to death, him to kill. There we go. Him to kill, him to be killed. Aorist passive, to be killed. Verse 29, and as they completed everything that had been written concerning him, so this is the aorist of teleo, to complete. Sigma alpha tells me it's aorist, right? There's the augment on the front. The things having been written concerning him. So this is you can see the reduplication on the front and the ending shoved right on the stem. This is a perfect passive participle. Men are passive, right? Having been written. Having taken down from the tree, having taken Jesus down from the tree. So this is probably kataireo. My aunt is an active participle, but the L tells me it's aorist because of the form. Having taken him down from the tree, they put him into the tomb. This is the aorist of tithemi. Remember, me verbs do 2.5 weird things. Sometimes the half is, sometimes they take a kappa alpha in the aorist as opposed to sigma alpha. Remember edoken, we memorized yesterday, if you hadn't already. Okay, verse 30. But God raised him from the dead. This is the climax of every sermon in Acts except for Stephen's. Something like this. He arose, except, of course, God is the active agent in Luke's theology, or at least in the way he presents it. He raised him. Probably aorist, although the imperfect and the aorist of agero looks exactly the same. Verse 31. Who appeared for many days to those who had come down with him from Galilee into Jerusalem. Okay, ophthe, theta, eta, it's aorist passive. It's from horao, to see. So it's literally who was seen. But usually, and this works in Latin as well, we translate this was seen as he appeared. That's just, it's an idiomatic way, or it just sure sounds really well in English, really good in English if we say who appeared. But it is aorist passive. For many days, upon many days, so accusative of extent of time, I suppose, to the ones who had come down. So participle here. This is adjectival participle because it has the article. There's no noun with it, so it's substantive. Anabino, sun anabino, ba is telling us it's aorist rather than the present. They had come down together, who now are witnesses of him to the people. So This is a strengthened relative clause, or maybe call it a conditional relative clause. Yeah, I think that's right. Okay, this has been the Greek of today, Acts 13:22 through 31.